Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and welcome back to another Legacy vs. Original comparison video. In today's video, I'll be comparing the two versions of Nia's Samurai X Mech that have been released. We have the original set number 9448 Samurai Mech from 2012, and then we have the Legacy remake set 70665, the Samurai Mech from 2019. If you guys are new to this series, real quick just to let you know, I will not be going over minifigures in this video, nor will I be going over side builds from these sets. I've done full reviews of both of these sets, so if you want to see minifigures or side builds, you can check those out here. So if you want to see full reviews of either of these sets, including minifigures and side builds, I'll link them in the description below, as well as my Legacy vs. Original comparison of the Samurai X minifigures, which was done in my Ninja Suits Legacy vs. Original comparison video, which will also be linked in the description below. But with all that being said, let's get on to this video. So this may be the most drastically different Legacy vs. Original comparison yet. These sets hardly share anything with each other. We have the original massive Samurai Mech, and then we have the all-new, or I guess not so new, it was 2019 at this point, but still the newer, much smaller Samurai Mech. And it's hard to compare these two because they are so different. But let me show you all the different aspects of each of them. So we'll start with the legs on the original. You can see they have a very mechanical design. They incorporate like the robot aesthetic with the samurai aesthetic really well. You can see they use these slope pieces right here to sort of emulate samurai armor. You have these little like cloth pieces coming down at the bottom. But then you have this gear right here, this pipe, this Technic piece, which are all added to just give it a mechanical look. I don't think any of those are really necessary to like make up the like bulk of this build, but they're used as detailing to give it a very robotic look, and I actually think it works really well. Normally I'm very against like open Technic holes, but it fits the aesthetic of this set, and I think it works well. The legs connect at the waist with these rigid Technic joints right here, and these are always really good for holding poses. Also, the rigid Technic joints are actually red, which is interesting. These tend to usually be gray or dark gray. I'm kind of shocked to see them in a color that isn't gray or dark gray, but yeah, it makes them look great and it incorporates it into the rest of the mech really well. But yeah, you can see you can spread the legs out and hold it in place. And combined with the posability in the feet, you can actually get in some pretty decent action poses, which here's how the full mech looks in that pose if you're curious. The Legacy mech, on the other hand, just uses mini ball joints. Not too much going on here. You can pretty much see the entirety of the legs just like this. But surprisingly, there's still some decent posability options with these. You can make some somewhat dynamic action poses with this, and it holds in place pretty well with how wide the feet are. Yeah, while I much prefer the way the original does it, this is still pretty darn good for such a small scale. Moving up to the torso of the original mech, you can see that there's these larger slope pieces on the sides right here. These, I think, are meant to be cloth, like draping over the legs. And this is really cool, and it's a nice way to hide like some of the joints, but also giving it a very like samurai look. Because these can both hinge up and down, and the entire torso can be rotated. So when you put the mech in different action poses, it's cool how you can actually still have the cloth like flowing over the legs pretty nicely. Yeah, that's a really cool technique, and I like it a lot. The chest of the mech has a spinner crown piece right here, and then a stickered piece of Nia's symbol right there. This guard at the front flips down, and this is how you get access into the cockpit, as well as hinging back the helmet at the top. Looking into the cockpit, you can see this is where Nia sits, and there's how it looks with her removed. Coming back up to the helmet, you can see there's an interesting little Samurai X symbol right there. You have the two samurai horns coming off. You have this little stickered flag behind with some characters on it. And then around the back, you have these little attached fuel canisters or jetpacks, which use like R2-D2 body pieces, which is pretty cool. Coming over to the Legacy mech, there's far less going on. This one's torso doesn't rotate like the original does, it's just stuck sort of facing forward. It does have these pieces right here to represent cloth draping over the legs, but they're far less impressive in the smaller scale. It's still really cool to see, it's just not as interesting. The entire torso design is like this 8-barred piece right here with Nia's symbol in the middle, just like on the original. And then you can see it has these two like robot arm pieces that sort of hug around Nia's armor. And to remove Nia, you just hinge this entire area open and take her out. Decent looking cockpit on the inside. You can see there's just two studs for her to stand on, but I like how it's got a flat back. It's not just like a bunch of studs. And then the flag on the back this time has the Samurai X symbol. This is different from the symbol at the front, which is Nia's symbol. This is the actual Samurai X symbol. So it's cool to see that both symbols are used on this build, while the original only has the Nia symbol. Moving to the arms, you can see the original uses like these large train guard pieces. I remember thinking this was the coolest thing as a kid, just seeing such interesting parts usage, right? Like the train guard pieces uses as like samurai armor for the mech. Super cool, and it works super well. And then each of these two arms is different. They're each connected on like this CCBS ball joint right here, which most of the time is covered up by that train guard, so even though it's like very open and obvious, I don't mind it because you don't see it most of the time. And that connects into this like armored forearm or wrist bit right here. You can see this little stickered piece right there of a little armor, some cheese slips to represent armor, and then at the end of this hand you have 4 individual fingers of these robot arm pieces with claws coming out. I always thought the clawed hands were really cool in the show, and I love how they look in person too. On the shoulder blade here, you have a robot arm piece with a classic LEGO cannon coming out of it, and you pull back on that, and a bolt will shoot out if you have one loaded into it. Other side has that same guard, that same like armored arm right here. Instead of the classic LEGO cannon that actually shoots things, I think this is supposed to be more of an imaginary water cannon where you imagine the shooting water out. I say water because Nia's the water ninja and it's blue, but it could just be imagined as a regular cannon or like a laser gun or something. It's really up to your interpretation. And then this hand has the same design, except it doesn't have claws and it holds a sword instead. The sword is just connected with a Technic pin and can be moved to the other hand if so desired. but I think it definitely fits better on the hand without the claws. The newer Samurai Mech actually has more joints than the original. The original just had arm and wrist, while this one has arm, elbow, and wrist. See, obviously the arm joint right here, and then you have the elbow joint, and then you have the little individual hand joints. Instead of one of the like front train guard pieces, they use one of these like barred pieces right here, and I think this is a fine alternative, though the train guards are definitely way more interesting and way cooler looking, but of course you can fit them into this scale. Then they use the same technique of the cheese slopes to represent armor, and then at the end, instead of the clawed hand, you have 2 gold katanas, and then the other hand is just a clip that holds a sword. The hand with the katanas also has a clip, so if you want to move the sword to that hand, you can, but once again, it makes more sense to have it in a hand that doesn't already have a weapon. And then finally, the cans at the top were just replaced with 2 regular old stud shooters. They have a brown trigger on them, and they shoot out gold studs. But yeah, there's everything I have to say for these 2 mechs. As to which one I prefer, I think it's pretty obvious. I much prefer the original. It's bigger, it's far more representative of what the vehicle was in the show. It's pretty much exactly what the vehicle was in the show, and that's why I love it so much. But it's also just a really solid set that stands the test of time. Like, if it was made today, it definitely could improve a little bit, but it's far better than a lot of other sets made around that time. So it's just super cool to see, like, how well it's held up. But just because I prefer this one, that doesn't mean the new one's bad at all. The new one is actually probably one of my favorite Legacy sets, because while it's not super representative of the Samurai X mech, it's still a really good little mech for Nia. So while it doesn't really look like this vehicle, in its own right, it's just a really good set. Minifigures are great too, but I don't talk about minifigures in these videos, so if you want to hear my opinions on that, you can go watch my full review of that set. But yeah, for what it is really, really great. But in terms of representing the vehicle, I think the original does a far, far better job. But those are just my thoughts. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think in the comments below. As I said at the beginning of this video, if you guys want to see my full reviews of either of these sets, or my Legacy versus original minifigure comparisons, you can go click one of the links in the description. I'll have links to all of those things there. But as for this video, I think that's about all I got to say. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed, please press like, subscribe if you're new. I do LEGO and Ninjago videos like this every single day, so if you subscribe, you'll be the first to see them. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.